Welcome to the Suck My DFS podcast presented by the Game House. I am Braxton and Will of the Game House here with the coach, Will Shearholtz. Will, I am fired up and ready to go today. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a great day.
It is a really great day. We had that fall feeling. We stepped outside this morning in St. Louis. It's just perfect fall day. If anything, it was a little chilly, but other than that, it was a great day.
It felt great.
It felt great. We got to get through the show a little bit faster than normal. I sadly have something to do. I know I don't really act like I have a life outside of the show and Game House, but I try to have a semblance of one. But anyways, let's get right into some of our talking points. Thursday night game, let's at least go over it. Right now, I believe the last time I checked the line was Philly minus 2.5 at home. On the road against the Giants. Initial thoughts on that, Will?
I think the Giants are going to win the game.
I like the Giants to cover. Thursday night, the home team has had a lot of success.
I mean,
most notably the Browns.
We talk about offenses having good nights, and if an offense is clicking, the Giants have a much better offense than Philly does.
At full capacity,
capacity. Like position player-wise, like they've got...
Running back's not close. Saquon, better than anything the Eagles can roll out there.
I mean, even with Alshon, receiver's not close either with Odell and Sterling Shepard.
At number 2 is Sterling. I mean, Evan Ingram's not in tonight, so clearly the edge goes to the Eagles and tight end. But, yeah, I would not be shocked one bit if the Giants won this thing tonight. But Eagles are a desperate animal after getting beat at home. And, I mean, the Giants had a heartbreaking loss. You really don't like taking teams coming off heartbreaking losses like that. Back-to-back years they lose with time expiring on 60-yard field goals. How crazy is that? Just insane. And I want to talk trades because we talked about this pre-show. I've made a trade in almost every league this week. You made a trade yourself, which actually sparked my trade because I didn't know the guy was open for business.
I like it.
But you go first. I liked your trade a lot.
So I received T.Y. Hilton, and I traded away Carson Wentz, who was on my bench, and Demaryius Thomas. And I was trying to dump Demaryius Thomas. I know he had a good week last week, but I was selling high on him. And Carson Wentz served his purpose. Cam Newton's my starter in that league. Carson Wentz was my backup. And he played 1 week, and because Cam already had his bye, got him out of there. So 2 guys on my bench for a starting receiver. He will definitely, when T.Y. comes back, he's going to be in my lineup. I was really happy with the trade, and I got a roster spot out of it,
which is also nice in that league for sure. I love the acquiring of T.Y. Hilton, even if he's not going to play this week. That's a good move.
With luck clicking on all cylinders right now, he gets T.Y. back. T.Y. is going to have career numbers with luck.
And I mean, I always have to remember this. I don't know if it was the year Brissett played, but something like T.Y. Hilton is 2 years removed from leading the league in receiving yards. I mean, this is a guy who's dynamic when he has competent quarterback play, so I absolutely loved it because essentially you can find – you said you already had Cam. I mean, you essentially got Thomas for Hilton straight up.
Yep.
And if we're building into Hilton injuries, like, okay, you're going to have him for essentially 2 bye weeks, which you'll take. I mean,
sure.
I love that. My trade – once I heard that news, I got on and sent some offers, and I ended up with this trade, which I'm so excited about. Alex Collins and Kenny Stills for Jordan Howard. So excited to buy low on Jordan Howard. Not only did he not perform well in the blowout, he had a bye week immediately following, so he essentially got this guy 2 zeros. And I was so happy to buy low on a guy like that. I'm all in on Jordan Howard this week, people.
I am too.
All in.
He's a no-brainer for me this
Not
week.
A single DFS lineup on any site will be without Jordan Howard against the Dolphins. But
how he's fallen $6,200. Oh my gosh.
We're going to get into this. It's going to be great. You know what? Let's get right into our top 5. Like I said, we got a lot to get through. We got to get through it quickly. So last week we talked about the top 5 guys who gave us headaches. This week we're going to take a victory lap. 6 weeks into the season, 5 weeks really into the season. Talk about guys that we were high on that panned out thus far. Will, who's your number 5?
So my number 5, it's somebody that basically is exactly who I thought he was, but Jarvis Landry. He's been Mr. Consistent in the league. He's only caught less than 5 balls one game this year. He caught 4, and that week he scored a touchdown.
Yep,
so
made up for it.
He's just a very consistent fantasy scorer. He's a great number 2 receiver to have on your team. He's never really going to let you down in that capacity.
I love it. Now, I do want to be clear. These are not necessarily guys that we all own. These are guys during the pre-draft process that we were targeting or talking up as far as guys who we'd like to go get. And my number 5, he's only number 5 because I don't have him anywhere, is Devontae Adams. Made a prediction earlier in the year that he's going to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns. And he's been nothing but consistent. He's been Rodgers' only guy offensively with all these injuries. Those of you who have Devontae Adams are very happy with his production, to say the least. But let's get right into our game-by-game examination of the Sunday main slate on FanDuel. Will, start us off with your first game.
I've got Arizona at Minnesota. Minnesota's a 10-point favorite at home. Over/under set at 43 points. Arizona coming off a big W, but I think I know 10 points is a lot, but I'm going to take Minnesota here, and I'm going to take the over. But I do think this is the week that Minnesota's defense gets on track. It's perfect offense to get in there and really get going. But there's no chance that Arizona can stop Minnesota, I don't think. I think Minnesota's going to have a field day offensively. But, yeah, 10 points is a lot, but I'm going to take Minnesota.
I agree pretty completely. I would say there's one thing I will keep an eye on. I still don't think they're going to get right running the football, even though the game script lines up that way. Just because, the injury, the uncertainty with Dalvin Cook. And also, I believe it's their left tackle, Riley Reif, is in a walking boot this week. I guess he's going to try to play, but a decimated offensive line getting worse via injury. So I do think Minnesota gets it done. I don't think it's on the ground, though.
No.
And I've got a key indicator that will let you know as to whether or not to play Dalvin Cook long before you get word as to whether or not he's good to go. So stay tuned for that. I'm moving into my first game. Chargers at Cleveland. Chargers are a 1-point road favorite, over under 45. Give me the Browns all the way and give me the over. The Cleveland Browns, before Baker Mayfield came in on Thursday Night Football, had one win in the past 2 seasons. Do you know who that win was against?
Why don't you let me know?
It was against the Chargers, and it was because it was a Week 17 game in Cleveland in December. And guess what, guys? This is a game the Chargers are prime to lose. They've been playing very good football. I mean, their 2 losses are the 2 of the best teams in the NFL, the Chiefs and the Rams, at 3-2 after taking care of business against the Raiders at home. They are due for a letdown, and it will be the Cleveland Browns because this is a team who has a capable defense and, finally, capable quarterback play. So
yes, they do.
Give me over and give me Cleveland. I don't want to say outright, but Cleveland, LA Chargers -1, give me Cleveland.
But don't play Njoku.
Don't play Njoku. I did an entire write-up about Chargers versus the tight ends, and I looked into the George Kittle play well. It was an 82-yard touchdown. Now, I don't want to say it was broken. Nobody fell down, but
But nobody covered him.
Nobody was within 6 yards of him in the zone, and he made a guy miss and got to the end zone. If you remove the 82-yard touchdown, he scores like 11 points, which is still a good day against this defense, but otherwise, Travis Kelce, Tyler Higbee, who scored more points than Gerald Everett, so I included him in the analysis. These tight ends just don't do anything against the Chargers, so stay away from Njoku. Stay away from Njoku. Your next game, Will.
Chicago at Miami. Chicago's 3.5-point favorite on the road, over under set 41.5 points. I'm taking the Bears because I'm all in on them right now. I love them.
Yes, this defense is going to get it done.
Yes.
We saw what Cincinnati did to this team, and the Bears have the number 1 fantasy defense, and you could make an argument they have the number 1 defense in the NFL. An argument. I don't think it's true, but you could do that.
And they're coming out of a bye. So
exactly. And if, we've got Nagy, who came from the Andy Reid School of Coaching. If Reid taught that guy anything, it's how to prepare with extra time.
Yes.
And Reid is legendary in opening games and coming off bye weeks or extra days to prepare. I really hope that got passed on to Matt Nagy because I love everything about the Bears this weekend against the Dolphins.
What about the over-under? I think I'm going to take the under on the 41.5.
Yeah. I think so too. Just because the Bears defense is so good and they're not going to have a pressure. They're not going to have pressure to keep scoring. No. So I like that too. I'm in agreement there. My next game, Carolina at Washington. Where we get our numbers from, Washington -1, over under 44.5. I don't think Washington's quite as bad as they displayed on Monday Night Football, but oh man, give me the Panthers. Give me the Panthers to cover this one and give me the under because I don't know how well Washington's going to move the football. For people who legitimately thought in the offseason that, Alex Smith is an upgrade over Kirk Cousins, I always thought you were wrong, and you're still wrong because Alex Smith was fantastic with Andy Reid. really, who isn't? I mean, Andy Reid is one of the best play callers in NFL history. He's one of the best schemers. I mean, he's so freaking good. Now we're seeing what Alex Smith and Jay Gruden's not a bad offensive coordinator by any means, but Kirk Cousins is almost, in my opinion, since he's been a starter, he's been better than Alex Smith, and now we're just seeing proof of that.
Sure. I agree with you.
That's the exact same team. And actually, Alex Smith has a better version of it because they've got all their offensive line healthy, which Cousins didn't have. Smith has Jordan Reed. He has, he's got Doxson Richardson. He's got Adrian Peterson. He's got more than what Cousins had last year on Washington.
He doesn't have Terrell Pryor, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's excellent analysis.
Sorry.
I do think Terrell Pryor was key in Kirk Cousins' success. You stumped me with that one. I just have to quit talking now because you played the Terrell Pryor card. So you go with your next one.
I've got Indy at the Jets. Jets are a 2.5-point favorite at home. Over under set at 45 points. Man, I really want to take Indy, but I'm going to take the Jets.
Okay.
But I'm going to take the over on the 45 points. But I'll take the Jets. I just think the Meadowlands is like a pretty decently tough place to play to go on the road. It's going to be outside. Weather's probably not going to be great.
That's true. I did see some weather potentially in the forecast, but I don't know what it exactly looks like. If it's bad weather, I would absolutely favor the Jets because they just have a stronger run game.
Just like no TY for Indy again. Yeah. I mean,
and Ebron's now banged up. Ebron's got some injury nicks.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if Indy came out and won this game by 3 touchdowns. It really wouldn't, but my gut's just telling me Jets at -2.5. Just roll with them. Yeah,
I think I'm just going to take the Indy side because, I mean, what do we always – when we're going through this, like, who's got the better quarterback, who's got the better defense?
Sure.
And, I mean, who's got the better head coach plays into it too. Now, I don't think Todd Bowles is actually that bad of a head coach. I mean, that team – always has their shit together. They're not really making mistakes that beat themselves. I mean, last year they beat Carolina and they took New England to the wire twice. So I think this is a coaching wash. So better defense, probably the Jets. Better quarterback, absolutely the Colts. So I'll just roll with the Colts in this one. I'll just roll with the Colts.
Don't hate it.
I like how you put that. I don't hate it. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, probably the biggest game of the week in terms of the early playoff race and divisional standings. Cincinnati's a 2.5-point home favorite, over under 52.5. Not my bold prediction, but my prediction was Cincinnati falls off, and I'm staying with it just because it takes a long time for a team to figure out how to win. I think they're close, but I think they're not going to really have it together until they go back to Pittsburgh later in the season. So give me Pittsburgh outright. And, give me the under. We just saw Pittsburgh have an explosion. The Bengals have been playing good offensive football, but give me the under in that game. Okay. It's just a feeling. Just a feeling.
I like it. I like when you go with the gut. I like it.
There's nothing better than a gut pick, especially when it pays off. Like, you just don't really know. Like, kind of last week, like, with Bills-Titans, I'm like, oh, just give me the gut, the Bills. Yeah. I mean, the road favorite, eek. We got more road favorites, and it's just, oh, gosh. So I love it when the gut play pays off.
I've got Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Atlanta's a 3.5-point favorite at home. Over under set at 57 points.
Is that high?
Oh my!
Yeah, I mean it's clearly high. We got another game on here. It's too bad it's not on the main slate. That Patriots Chiefs game. Oh my God! So many high totals.
After getting throttled last week by Pittsburgh, I'm going to say they don't recover. I'm going to take Tampa Bay. I'm going to take Jameis in Tampa Bay.
So. Fantasy-wise, I got no problem with taking the Buccaneers side of this game.
There's no defense played.
The Falcons are a carnival. When they roll into town, they score, and then they let you score because they just don't have the horses anymore on defense.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just looking too closely at Atlanta's record at 1-4 and thinking – because I don't have a lot of faith that Tampa Bay is a very good football team, but I don't know. They're coming out of a bye. They got Jameis back. They've got just as many weapons offensively as Atlanta does.
I mean, but let's look at who Atlanta's played. Open with the Eagles when they were.
Their schedule's been hard. Yeah, I get it.
I mean, open with the Eagles. They get a win against the Panthers at home, and Panthers are a good team. Then they play the Saints. Then they do who they play after the Saints. They play the Steelers right after the Saints. I mean, oh my gosh, they've had it. They've had brutal beats.
Yeah. But Tampa Bay hasn't played that easy of a schedule either.
No, I agree. But the last we've seen of Tampa Bay is not as good as the last we've seen of Atlanta. So
I agree.
But they did have the bye week to prepare. It just gave me the Atlanta side. I got to feel. My prediction on Tuesday was they score 30 and they cover whatever the spread is.
I'm going over on the 57.
Yeah.
I'm going over.
Okay, good. There we go. I don't know if it's over, even though they made the over last week and Pittsburgh almost covered the whole thing.
I know it's a ton of points, but man, Tampa Bay's defense is just as bad as Atlanta's defense.
That's true. It's really going to be how well does Jameis play.
How well does Jameis play?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to depend on if Jameis plays well.
Exactly. Because if Jameis doesn't play well, the Falcons win this thing going away, in my opinion.
I agree.
Anything else in that game?
No.
Okay, game I am not going anywhere near. Seattle at Oakland. Seattle's a 3-point road favorite. You're probably thinking, well, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, this game's in London. It's not technically in Oakland. So we have 2 road teams, and in a neutral site, I'm totally fine with the Seattle -3. Over under 48. I think this is going to be a game that doesn't have a lot of ownership because it's hard to pick out what players are going to do well. I think this game's going to go nuts just because Seattle's not good. The Raiders are clearly not good. And you have competent quarterback play on the Raiders side with a really good quarterback play from Russell Wilson. So give me the over. I still don't have anyone in this game because I don't know where to go. I would love to go Tyler Lockett, but the dude, can he really keep this up on 5 or 6 targets a game?
It's 3 catches.
3 catches and they're all gigantic. It's kind of like the Calvin Ridley problem that we talked about earlier. So I think the game will be entertaining for the crowd across the pond, but I won't have any DFS ownership at all.
All right.
Yep.
I've got Buffalo at Houston. Houston is a 10-point favorite. Think about that. 10-point favorite at home, over and under 41 points. Houston's got 2. They're 2-3, and they're a 10-point favorite at home.
The Bills, here's how bad the Bills' offense is, Will. So yards per play is usually a pretty good indicator about, how good a team is. And anything around 6 is really good. The Rams are out of this world around 7 right now. But and I'll give you some reference. The worst team in the NFL last year in terms of yards per play would have been at 4.9. Where are the Bills, Will, if you had to guess?
3.2.
3.6. They are, to use the term, special bad on offense. So I kind of get it. If they're down 13-0, it may as well be 30-0. So I don't necessarily agree with it, but I get the perspective.
I can't take -10 though, because
plus with Watson not healthy.
I'm taking Buffalo. Every game that Houston's played has been close.
Yeah,
every single one. They haven't run away with one. They haven't gotten beat down by one. So I think this one's going to be close too.
I'm with Buffalo too.
At least not 10, but maybe not really close, but not 10 points.
Not 2 possessions.
I'll take Buffalo, and I'll take the over on 41.
All right. That's interesting. How that gets there, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm here for it because I like some guys I like one guy on the Houston side a lot. Crazy line right there. Rams at Denver. Rams 7-point road favorite, and Denver's a really hard place to play. One of the best home field advantages, not just because of the crowd, but that altitude makes it so hard to play.
Look at what KC did a few weeks ago.
I know. Over under 40.5. I think that's going over. And I will take the Rams to cover again. I'm just going to keep taking the Rams to cover because I've been saying this a ton. They don't run an offense the way a conventional NFL team does. I'll keep saying this. In their opinion, the best way to run out the clock is to score more points. And we talked about this. If you're looking before the season, last week's game against Seattle was a really obvious letdown spot because the Thursday night game against Minnesota, going into Seattle against an inferior opponent, everything went right for Seattle. Literally everything, and they still couldn't get the win. So give me the Rams to take care of business at Denver after having a scare last week in Seattle.
I like it. I've got Jacksonville at Dallas. Jacksonville's a 3-point favorite on the road, over and under set at 40.5 points. I'm taking Dallas. I think Dallas is winning the game outright, and I'm taking the under.
Whew. So I would say I disagree with the who's winning. Dallas to cover, yeah. That makes total sense to me. And what did you say the over-under was?
40.5. It's low.
Jesus.
I could see it. Dallas is going to feed Zeke.
Plus, Dallas plays at the slowest pace in the NFL. So if we get two teams that are running the ball, this thing could be over at like 2:30 Central Time. How about this? Do we want to make a bet that this is the first game to go to halftime? As the Red Zone channel's flipping through, what do you know? The Dallas Jaguars game's already at halftime.
It's 100%.
And the Tampa Bay Atlanta game just finished the first quarter.
Yeah, because it'll be 17-21 at the end of the first quarter.
I hope so. But I agree with most of that analysis.
Just most.
Yeah, just most. I mean, 2 out of 3 parts is most. And then finally, Baltimore at Tennessee in the afternoon. Just shut this thing down before the Sunday night. Baltimore's a 2.5 road favorite, over under 41. Everything with Tennessee just turns to crap. Give me Tennessee to cover that 2.5 points at home. And give me the under. I mean, I can see a situation where this game shoots out, but it's really because Baltimore would be handling most of the load because Flacco's probably going to bounce back after a tough game in Cleveland. But give me Tennessee to cover. Baltimore's not good enough to be a multi-point favorite on the road. I think this should be a pick'em game. So I will take Tennessee to cover, and I'll take under.
I like it.
I like how efficient we're being in this podcast. It's not as fun, but we're on a really good clip. But before we get to the best part of the podcast, the players to build around, get back to our top 5 players we were right about in preseason process. So, Will, who's your number 4 and number 3?
So my number 4 is a little bit obscure, but I was really high on Kerryon Johnson, and I actually have him in both of my leagues. I haven't played him yet. He's been on my bench, but I took him in the 13th round.
That's fantastic. You got him there.
Yes, and he's averaging 8.3 points per game. So
it's better than any of the Green Bay running backs who are in a similar time.
He's on the way up. That's the 26th ranked fantasy running back, and I think that's only going to go up from here. He's still the lead back there. Yeah, LeGarrette Blount's
getting those
stole a couple touchdowns.
Jeez.
I haven't played him yet, but Kerryon will get in there for me at some point at my flex, and that's really good value for me. So he's my number 4. Number 3 is Stephon Diggs. He's not Adam Thielen. Still having a really good year, though.
Especially like where he was going in the 3rd or 4th round, you could have hit some problem children like Larry Fitzgerald.
The thing about Stephon Diggs is I honestly could have put him on either of my lists. I could have put him on a headache list, or I could have put him on this list. And it's because I really thought he was going to have a better year than Thielen, and he's not.
Well, I'm right there with you. When we do next week, when we do our players we were wrong about, I was way wrong on Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
Way wrong.
So, but Diggs is still having a great year. A lot of that's because Kirk Cousins. So I'm really happy with him. I was high on him. And, number 3.
There you go. My number 4 player was Alshon Jeffrey. I know we're only 2 games in, but if we're averaging those 2 games that he had, he's averaging right around 10.5 fantasy points per game, which is not something you can say about most number 1 wide receivers at this point. Even though receiver scoring is up, it's pretty inconsistent week to week. And I love him Thursday night. I'm playing him in some of my leagues. And I got this dude in the 7th round at the earliest. He just kept falling. And I'm thinking, I can get the number 1 wide receiver with a Carson Wentz type quarterback. I mean, it's tremendous value. And I was able to make it work the first 4 or 5 weeks he wasn't there, or I wasn't playing him. So super happy that I've got Jeffrey everywhere. And then number 3, this is more of a testament to our philosophy about handcuffing. TJ Yeldon. I mean, I believe off the top of my head, TJ Yeldon's a top 10 fantasy running back in terms of total points, and I got this dude in legitimately the 16th round of my draft. And some guy didn't draft him in another league, so I just picked him up because he's the Fournette owner and didn't have him. I mean,
he's the 11th ranked fantasy running back.
Exactly. A 16th round pick for me is the 11th ranked running back. Show me another player who's producing that kind of value. You can't. At least I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe you could argue maybe Phillip Lindsay, but if he goes undrafted and nobody cared about him, then he doesn't count. So, just a testament to the handcuff strategy. If you've got an RB1, get the handcuff.
Yes.
Just do it.
Every time.
And what about the bye week? Okay, idiot. You know how you handle the bye week? You put the starter on the bench and you drop the handcuff because no one's picking up the backup running back when he's on bye.
Yes.
It's just not happening. So I don't even want to hear that ridiculous case. So what if someone picks it up before waivers? Drop them 1 minute before the game's on Sunday.
Or just drop your freaking backup quarterback that you don't use.
Nicely put. The backup quarterback, the backup tight end. If you got one of those, God help you.
Exact reason I dumped Carson Wentz, because he's just taking up a roster spot.
Exactly. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. Our players to build around at different price points. Got to start with the quarterback, man. Who's your tier 1 quarterback?
I think we're gonna have a similar one here, but Matt Ryan against Tampa Bay.
Yes.
As much as Atlanta's struggling to get wins, they're 1-4. Matt Ryan's having a great year offensively. He's playing against a terrible pass defense, 8,300. That's really a good price for what he's going to do against that defense. So I like Matt Ryan in tier 1.
And if you're playing him this week, you're happy he didn't go off last week, or else he'd be 85, 86. Yes. He'd probably be the most expensive on the main slate, given we don't have a Brady or Mahomes or a Rodgers or a Breeze to contend with. Yeah. So he would probably be the most expensive player. I mean, the guy, even though he didn't play
the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is the most expensive player on the road is – who's going to play him for 8,500?
I wouldn't touch him. I would save 100 and get Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Because Cam rarely has back-to-back duds, and his dud wasn't even that terrible against the Giants.
Points.
Yeah, which is cash value. Yeah. It's cash game value. So not the worst thing ever, but I'm not touching Ben. And even at Matt Ryan only scored 14 or so points, he still threw for 258, 1 touchdown. Or no, 278, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Yeah. He just didn't get the second touchdown, or else he gets you 18. He goes 2.5x, and we're fine. Nobody's complaining.
He's averaging 25 a game.
Insane. And by the way, let's look at these quarterbacks against Tampa Bay. Drew Brees lit him up. Nick Foles, not so much. But guess what? Nick Foles doesn't have a starting job anymore. Week 3, Pittsburgh. Week 4, Mitch Trubisky put 6 touchdowns on this team. You mean to tell me Matt Ryan at home can't do the same? Get out of here. If I can make a lineup work with Matt Ryan, I'm going to roll with it.
I like it.
Your tier 2 quarterback, Will.
I'll go with his counterpart, Jameis, baby, out of the bye. I'm up on Jameis. I'm really excited to see him play. Atlanta's defense's pass D is almost as bad, maybe as bad as Tampa Bay's, but there's going to be a shootout. I think Jameis could have a really big game. He's got some offensive weapons. I'm excited to watch him play. 7,400, good price for him.
Yes, I've got him as my tier 3 quarterback. I mean, he's going to be, for good reason, the chalk of all chalk at quarterback. One of the cheaper plays, and again, a great matchup. So I'm going to go to my tier 2 since you covered it.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins. I want you to look at these attempt numbers, Will. Kirk Cousins so far has thrown the ball 36 times, 48 times, 55 times, 50 times, and 37 times. The volume is here, and he has 2 unbelievable options at wide receiver to help his productivity and his efficiency. Arizona's not as bad as the Bills. I don't think they're as bad as the Bills. I think the Bills are better coached, and that's why we see their success rate being higher. And the Vikings are not going to fall asleep at the wheel again, being a double-digit favorite at home against this team. So they're going to pour it on, and I still don't think it's going to be the run game. So, by the way, here's the Dalvin Cook nugget. Look at how many running backs are going to be active for the Vikings on Sunday. If it's more than 3, don't start Dalvin Cook in seasonal and don't play him in DFS. Because if it's more than 3, that means they're rotating Cook, Murray, Rock Thomas, and I think it's C.J. Ham. I mean, don't waste your time with Cook if more than he, Murray, and Rock Thomas are active.
By the way, Rock Thomas went to Auburn and was like the 3rd-string running back and transferred to Jacksonville State.
He sounds like a character from the Flintstones, Rock Thomas. I mean, he sounds like a football guy, in all honesty. But, I mean, if there are 4 or 5 running backs active for the Vikings, don't waste your time on Dalvin Cook. But, yes, your tier 3 quarterback, Will, if you have one. You're going all the way down.
My tier 3 pay down here, $6,800. Sam Darnold against the Colts. Colts have the 28th ranked pass defense. It's a tough play because Darnold hasn't put up big numbers, but this is purely a matchup-based play, and the fact that he's so cheap at $6,800, and it is at home. So I think Darnold could have a decent day against the Colts, and I kind of hope it would go to a shootout if that would be the case. But I don't know. But if I decided to pay down, that's where I would go at Sam Darnold, $6,800.
Nothing wrong with that. The only thing that will keep me off of him is their want to run the football. I mean, we saw that with both guys getting 15 carries last weekend, but I mean, everything else lines up pretty good for Darnold this weekend. So I really have no problems with that.
It's the best matchup he's probably going to get this season at home against the Colts.
At home against the Colts. Yeah. I mean, they haven't played the Dolphins at home yet, but they didn't do anything in that game, so who knows what that'll translate to later in the season. The Bills actually are traveling a pretty good defense, and the Patriots just own rookie quarterbacks. So unless your name's Deshaun Watson, apparently. So I don't mind that at all if you're going all the way down. Running back, man, I had 3 running backs I loved everywhere last week, and I played them everywhere. I played Melvin Gordon, James Conner, and TJ Yeldon in every single lineup, and it was great. Actually, no, not true. I faded Connor on one lineup for Aaron Jones in the one GPP I play, and it was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. Here's what I love for my tier 1 running back, Todd Gurley, $9,500. Okay, it's a ton of money, but it's worth every penny. Last week, the guy had 7 red zone carries, 7 carries, 3 rushing touchdowns. He still gets work in the passing game, and if one of the receivers isn't going, he's in great shape. And if both aren't going, he just seems like the optimal play. In Denver, with how they set up with their wide 9 when they do the base, when they go to the 4-3 base, like you just get gashed. It's the same way Mixon gashed Miami. So I love Gurley, and I think we're going to get him at a little bit under-owned, given his price tag is so much higher than the next closest guy.
I'm with you. At this point, you pretty much got to get Gurley in there whenever you can.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
That's why Winston's going to be so attractive.
I am going to go Melvin Gordon for my tier 1 against Cleveland for 8,800. It's a good matchup. Cleveland's 22nd against the run. I thought they'd be a little bit better, but they're not. And Melvin Gordon's only had 1 week that he scored under 20 points.
I had him last week, and in 20 felt like a disappointment. But it's 20 points.
Yeah, 20 points.
Yeah, he went 2.5x.
The 1 week he didn't score 20, he had 15.
Yeah, so he's not crushing you.
It's Mr. Consistency there.
And you get like almost $1,000 discount from Gurley. Yes. Almost.
He's just they work him so much in the pass game, too, that even if he's not having a big game on the ground, he's going to catch balls. Like 4 receptions for 60 yards.
Could you imagine if Austin Eckler wasn't there?
Yes.
This guy might be RB1 over Kamara.
It's crazy.
Actually, over Gurley after Kamara's bad performance on Monday Night Football. But, yeah, he's excellent play if you don't want to pay up for Gurley. My tier 2, Joe Mixon. I talked about him last week on the podcast. I pivoted off him at the last minute because Cameron Wake didn't play for the Dolphins, and he's a pass rush specialist. So they brought in their one of the rotation guys who's better against the run. So they had a better base front against the run. And there were whispers that Mark Walton was going to get some cut into his workload. So I'm like, F it, I'll pay up for Connor. But I love Mixon again this week in a competitive game against Pittsburgh. He's game flow proof with no Giovanni Bernard, or at least Gio's doubtful. And at 7,500, I think if you want to stack up some wide receivers, this is a guy you can play at your RB1, and he can compete with some of the big boys on the slate.
Good play.
There it is. There it is.
I've got Yeldon as my 2, and he's $7,100. I've raved about Dallas's defense now for a few weeks. But this is a volume play. No Fournette, no Grant. The only other back in that backfield.
Wilds and Jamal Charles.
Yeah, I mean, like
Charles not doing anything.
No.
Come on now.
So I'm going to go Yeldon because he's going to get a steady dose of carries, and they will work him in the pass game a little bit too. So I'm going Yeldon 7,100.
Yes, nothing wrong with that. I've got Yeldon on a couple lineups, but my tier 3 guy is the whole reason I'm not really on Yeldon. I said this at the beginning. Jordan Howard, all in.
No brainer.
6,200 against Miami. This price is unbelievable. And his perception of how good he isn't is just wrong. Because people are like, well, why didn't he get any work in that game against the Bears? Well, let's go back and examine that game. They're literally up by 30 points. In what other situation would it be odd for the backup running back to get some carries in a situation where you're winning by 30? They just got up by too much too quickly, and they pulled Howard for maintenance reasons, from what I can see. So with that being the last impression, I think we're going to get Howard at single-digit ownership, which is crazy at this price in this matchup.
Yeah, it's a no $6,200 for Jordan Howard. Are you kidding me? That's unbelievable. I would have considered playing him if he was $7,200 against Miami's D.
It would be
played him, but But like
he'd be in the pool. He'd be in the player pool.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Jordan Howard.
Jordan freaking Howard.
Do you have a tier, has a big game.
Is that your tier 3 as
that's
well?
That's my tier 3 as well.
Yes. By the way, I totally forgot to give my GPP plays at each position. My GPP quarterback, Deshaun Watson, because he's going to be under-owned for 8,100. People are going to think, well, I don't know if he can put the pedal to the metal on the Bills or if they can stay within striking distance. So I love Watson at 81. And then GPP, if there's not, if like I said with I love Dalvin Cook at 63 because of the given workload, but this is only contingent based on how many running backs are active that day. So Cook is the GPP play for me. Do you want to kick off our wide receiver talk?
Sure.
Will?
I'm going Mike Evans against Atlanta for 8,000. If I'm buying Jameis, I'm up on Mike Evans as well. He's having a fantastic season. He's averaging over 100 yards a game. But it's kind of yardage-wise at least. He's had one good game, one bad game, one good game, one bad game. Not touchdown-wise, but yardage-wise. But his last game was a bad game. So hopefully this next one's a good one.
And the defense is not nearly as tough as the Bears was in Chicago.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that he can't go off against this defense. I think wide receivers are expensive this week. I think 8,000's
a good place to save some cash.
Yeah, especially because that matchup's just too good.
It is. And I mean, last year when Jameis came back, I think he was averaging over 7.5 yards per attempt. So he was still throwing the ball down the field. So I don't expect the overall philosophy of the offense to change very much. My number one guy is Adam Thielen. I had him on every lineup last weekend. Still love the hell out of the guy this week because, I mean, I outlined it. The attempts are off the charts for Cousins. The run game is very unstable, and he's playing out of the slot, so you won't see a lot of Patrick Peterson, maybe none, unless they're in some sort of odd formation. And Cousins just trusts the hell out of the guy. It's evident. The targets are there. The, not relying on touchdowns is there too. And even at 8,600, he's the best wide receiver play.
Yeah.
Because if they blow the Cardinals out, well, they got to score the points somehow, and it's not going to be running the football.
No.
Your tier 2 wide receiver, Will.
I'm going Calvin Ridley against Tampa Bay. I'm just buying this game because I think it's going to be a shootout. He's 6,700. Tampa Bay ranks dead last against the pass. We've already mentioned that several times.
And Ridley just disappointed last weekend in a big matchup, so they're going to be hesitant to go back to that well.
I mean, Julio can't catch every ball. So Calvin Ridley's got to get some work. Sanu's been actually okay the last few weeks, but I still think Ridley's going to be the guy that could really break out in this game. Maybe have another multiple touchdown game like he had earlier. That's what I'd be hoping for at least. But 6,700, pretty cheap. So I like Ridley against that defense.
Yes, I got nothing wrong with that play. I'm going a little bit higher scale for my wide receiver. Will Fuller at 7,200. Tre'Davious White, in all likelihood, is going to get DeAndre Hopkins. And now I've seen places that have reported like, no, it's actually more likely that Will Fuller draws him. But I just don't see how that's possible, especially if Hopkins starts going off early game and they don't make the pivot. Well, then you're just going to lose if you have Will Fuller. And that's tough. But if we look at some of the other guys that he shadowed, like Corey Davis, by far the best receiver on the Titans, he ran with him all day last weekend, and Corey Davis barely did anything. He ran with Devontae Adams when the Packers played the Bills. So even if he doesn't start out on Hopkins, he's going to end up on him eventually. And Fuller just needs one or two plays to make value at 7,300, excuse me. And I think he gets back on the touchdown track this weekend.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough game last week. I think this week he could explode. I hope he does.
Yeah, I mean, really got to pay attention to the hamstring. If the hamstring, if I'm going to be honest, if there's reports like, hey, he's going to test it out in warm-ups, don't mess with Will Fuller.
No.
They don't do it. Speed is the biggest part of his game. It's his biggest asset. So if he's not 100% at top speed, don't worry about him at 73. That's going to be a brutal day for you if he's testing it out in pregame warm-ups. But your tier 3 wide receiver, Will.
This was an easy one for me. Sam Darnold's favorite target, Quincy Enunwa against Indy for 5,800.
Little Jets pairing right there.
I love it.
Little Jets pairing.
$5,800 for. I guess Robbie Anderson could be their one. No. Enunwa was their one.
Robbie Anderson was the third most targeted wide receiver. Jermaine Kearse got more targets than Robbie Anderson did. Robbie Anderson is a donkey play this weekend. So
I'm up on Enunwa for 5,800. I think it's a a great price.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He's only $300 more expensive than Anderson. So you're not even getting Anderson at a discount. If Anderson was $5,000, $4,900, then we're talking something here because that's substantial for what you can do at other places. But no, I'm doing one over everyone in that offense this weekend. My tier 3 guy, I'm paying up a little bit at the receiver position. I just found out this guy's nickname today, Will. John Smokey Brown. $6,300. Now, he's going to be, I anticipate he'll be pretty popular. He's very good at what Tennessee is very bad at, defending the deep ball. And Flacco is, whatever his flaws are, he throws a good deep ball.
He really does.
And John Brown is the number one receiver in this offense. And if you didn't believe it in terms of his workload, the Browns shadowed him with Denzel Ward. They said, Ward, travel with this dude. And while he didn't produce well, I mean, teams don't just travel a corner for the sake of traveling because that means you change your defense every play based on where the guy lines up. So they're not going to do that just for the sake of doing that. That means other teams are now respecting John Brown, and I love Brown at 6,300. He's getting in the end zone. He's getting in the box.
I believe it.
I hope so too for my bankroll sake. Let's get to tight ends. Let's talk about one guy. I have another guy written down on the list here, but in my mind there's one tight end play, and it is
Cameron Brate.
All we've been talking about for a week and a half is Cameron Brate when this guy gets back from injury. O.J. Howard is practicing. Dude, he's got a partially torn meniscus. He's not playing.
Even if he does, I don't even care. I'm still picking Brate.
Even if he plays, it's almost better for Brate because then it's almost like they can't really worry about Brate as a tight end. $4,500. My God. I thought about this last week when there are these high total games, get one expensive piece, run it back with another cheap piece. So if you got Matt Ryan, run this thing back with Cameron Brate. Or maybe Deshaun Jackson at $6,500, or all the way down to Chris Godwin at $5,900. Don't be running it with Matt Ryan, Julio, Evans, because if it doesn't plan out, if you get a Pittsburgh game, then you're screwed. But if you have Matt Ryan and one guy running it back, you're in a much better position, especially in our cash games that we play. But the other guy I've got here is Austin Hooper, $5,600. Tampa Bay has not been good against tight ends. Zach Ertz, Trey Burton, Vance McDonald, and Jesse James. So if you want to differentiate that way, go to Hooper at $5,600. So I feel like tight ends very ironclad for me this week. Every lineup I go to, I start with the same defense: Jordan Howard in the flex and Cameron Brate at tight end.
The most expensive tight end's Eric Ebron.
What a joke! What a joke! He's apparently. Let's get into defenses. I think there's actually one play on defense. You feel strongly about the Cowboys.
I do.
So I'm gonna let you go first.
So yeah, I'm taking Dallas's defense against Jacksonville for $4,100. I just think they played really well defensively, and I don't have a lot of faith in Jacksonville's offense to go with Dallas's D.
Yeah.
So I just think they're going to shut them down. I think DeMarcus Lawrence is going to get after Bortles. I don't know, man. I just like them for $4,100. They're the 8th ranked defense.
It's not a bad play at all, especially with the price. And they're a good defense, and the price is fantastic.
Yes.
Now, I have one defense that I'm lock buttoning, and it's the Bears at $4,500 against the Dolphins.
That's a great play, too.
What do I need to do? Yeah. What else do we need here? Especially if you love Howard like we do. You play the Bears defense, you play the correlation play with Howard, and then you just move on. It's an easy part to fill out your lineup. The sack potential with the Dolphins, we saw it last week with the Bengals, and the Bengals are not the defense that the Bears are. So give me the Bears. I don't see how they're not making cash value.
I think they're going to murder the Dolphins.
I would love it. It would work out fantastically for me. But my GPP play is the Washington defense at $3,300. They're not as bad as they looked on Monday Night Football.
No.
And hosting Cam on the road, I think they could definitely get some sacks with that front.
Sure.
And they might be able to take advantage of Cam when he takes a chance. So that's my GPP play for Washington.
I'm a Carolina fan. That game kind of scares me, the Washington game.
Oh, yeah. Cam, like we said, it's hard for him. He really doesn't have a whole lot of downers in a row. But it's hard to even classify last week as a dud. 16 points.
No,
he didn't have a rushing touchdown.
It was
didn't
only
have
a dud because he
yards.
threw a couple of picks in the second half. And that's
true.
what made the game worse. His first half was good.
He was. He was very good. They were running the hell out of those screens, if you noticed. Just every play, rocket screens to Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore. So if the Eagles took notice, Nelson Aguilar could be in for a big night. But you know what? That's going to wrap up our players to build around. Get back to our top 5. Who is your number 2 player that you were right about, Will?
This was an easy one for me. I liked AJ Green. He's the 4th-ranked receiver, and I compared him often to somebody like Keenan Allen, who were going in a similar place in the draft. Keenan Allen's the 32nd ranked receiver. I didn't think he was going to be that bad, but I liked AJ Green because of consistency. He's on the field more, doesn't get injured as often, and he's really panned out. He's having a great season. A lot of that's because Andy Dalton's having a good year, but number 4 ranked receiver for AJ Green, I'll take that all day.
You were on AJ Green as, if he's there in the 2nd round, I will take him over guys like Allen, even over guys like Devontae Adams.
Yep.
It's panned out. So, nicely done there. My number 2 is Cooper Kupp. Now, I've only have him in one league, and that's because one is not a redraft league, and on the other, I couldn't get the right value. But I hammered this home when we broke down receiving cores in the preseason. When you have guys who get fed, there are multiple guys who are getting fed, you take the guy who is the cheapest or the guy who gets the most red zone looks. And Kupp was both of them. Kupp was very often the 3rd receiver drafted out of this receiving core, and he's getting the majority of the red zone looks. And he's best friends with Jared Goff. This is a Will Fuller, Deshaun Watson situation.
Yep.
He has always been the guy to own, and I'm so glad I got him in the 9th or 10th round. And he's been my flex play for the last 2 weeks, and it's been great.
You've nailed it.
Great. Now, the list of players we were wrong on is twice as long. You said that in pre-show. You're like, man, the list of players we got right is not very long. And I think that's fine because what the best players do, or at least what I've learned, is you have guys that you like and you're aggressive on them. And if they don't work out, you have to be ready to move on from them, which we have moved on from the guys we don't like. We've traded them. Like Demaryius Thomas, I was wrong on. He's not on my roster anymore. Nope. Gone. As long as you can move on from an appropriate amount of time, it's not going to hold you back if you miss in the draft process. I know we usually go to rants, but I don't have a rant. Everything seems pretty good for me. You're a pretty chill guy all the time. Plus, if you couldn't tell, I'm in a hurry. I'm talking real fast. So, Will, review your top 5. And let's get to the number 1 player you were right about.
Number 5 for me was Jarvis Landry. Number 4, Kerryon Johnson. Number 3, Stephon Diggs. Number 2, AJ Green. And my number 1, and you mentioned it earlier, but the handcuff running back. I've got James Conner. I drafted Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, it hasn't worked out, but I got James Conner as the 4th-ranked running back. In my other league, I drafted Leonard Fournette, but I also have TJ Yeldon, the 11th-ranked running back. So
what do we have to do?
The value
just do the handcuff
from those guys, I picked up one and drafted one.
Yeah.
But the value lies in the handcuff, knowing that I needed those guys on my team with that starting running back. So the value I've gotten out of those, out of a super late pick and an undrafted guy. Unbelievable. In
the league I drafted Fournette, I drafted Yeldon. In one of the other leagues, I picked up Yeldon because I'm thinking, oh my God, why has no one picked him up? And I look at the Fournette owner. The Fournette owner is last in the league, so he's just not a very good player, and I will take advantage of bad players all day long.
All day.
Now I'm trying to trade him for Leonard Fournette so I can have both of them. And in that league, my running back tandem, if I do this, would be Kamara and Fournette for the stretch run, which would be unreal if I can pull it off. But let's get to my number 1 player I was right about. Number 5, Devontae Adams. Number 4, Alshon Jeffrey. Number 3, TJ Yeldon, just reinforcing that handcuff logic, really. Number 2 is Cooper Kupp. And number 1 is Carlos Hyde, top 10 fantasy running back, a guy you could get at the earliest in the 6th round. The guy's been fantastic. And
awesome.
How did we know Carlos Hyde was going to be good? Because Todd Haley's the coordinator, and Todd Haley features one guy in everything. While they have Duke Johnson, and he's gotten touches, Nick Chubb has had 0 role, essentially, and Hyde is still getting catches. Hyde is getting the majority of the work, and it's because we identified an offensive coordinator who uses one back, and we weren't afraid to, trust our information and take Hyde wherever we could.
Duke Johnson's role actually hasn't even been as big as I thought it would be.
Nope.
So that's awesome. Hyde's great. Love Hyde. I own him.
I own him too. I'm very glad that I do. Sadly, I think you have him in the league that we're both in, right? In Game House League, you have Hyde?
I do have Hyde.
That's okay. You cannot win them all, which is a great, just the best mantra to have when it comes to daily fantasy, seasonal fantasy. You can't always win. But you want to win as much as possible, and that's why we do the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Best of luck this Sunday on the FanDuel main slate, and we will see you next week.